Hi, I'm Mary Hood, and I'm back again to bring you another handful of Christmas hope. Did you bring your beverage? Your Christmas beverage? I bought mine. Look what I've got this morning. I've got a smoothie. I don't drink a lot of smoothies, but I love them. I don't really know all the different ways you can make them. I went on YouTube and I listened to somebody talk about them. And she was a nutritionist with a master's degree. And she told me all the things what not to do about protein and carbohydrates and fats and what's going to add sugar and what's going to be healthy and what's going to slow you down. And she was very interesting. This is just fruit and a little yogurt and some chia seeds and some almond milk. This is my recipe, not hers. I just couldn't. And I also put a little bit of chocolate peppermint in here. Now, normally I wouldn't do that, but it's Christmas. It's so much fun. I might have this on Christmas morning with my waffles and bacon. Christmas is a joyous time, isn't it? It's joyous. I was thinking about the Advent candles. Now, our church, I think in the past, has lit the candles 4 weeks before Christmas. And different churches do different order of Advent candles. And, I didn't pay much attention to them this year. I write on them almost every year. They just weren't a priority, I guess. But I know that there was hope and there was peace. And I know this is the week for joy. And don't you love a joyous celebration? I do. This week I was very joyous. At the beginning of the week, I was extremely joyous. I remember last Sunday, I was so joyous, I was throwing it at everybody in the Lord. I was just tossing it out everywhere. Did you ever have anybody throw joy at you? Then Monday, the next day, I was shopping for somebody, a client. And it was almost suddenly, I became extremely sad. I mean, I was grieving. I was walking through the store I saw somebody that I knew, and I wanted to go up to this person and spill everything out. I was grieving. And I kept thinking, God, is this, why am I grieving? You know, I know what grieving is like. I think a lot of us do. So I recognized it immediately. I'm in grief. And I wanted to go up to people and say, can you help me? I am in grief. Can you please help me? But I didn't. And somebody, yeah, it was that same person in the store. They asked me how I was, and I suppressed everything I wanted to say. And I said, oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm working. But I wasn't. I was in grief. And, you know, I went outside to my car, and this person was getting in their car, and we had this little conversation, and I began to I just bucked up. And I had this conversation, and we laughed a little bit and complained about the prices because they're all going up. And then he took off, and I went back to work. And, you know, a little time went on, and all of a sudden, my grief left. It was the strangest thing. And I haven't felt that grief since. I was shown a very great lesson. For a moment, I think I learned it, but I was taught a very great lesson from the Lord. About joy and about throwing your joy at people. When they needed something else. And the Lord ministered to me. And he said, everybody isn't going to receive your joy, Mary. I know you want to give it to everybody. But there are people hurting, just like the time you hurt so bad. And somebody wanted to give you joy, and you threw it right back at them. And he led me to some scriptures. I won't read them all, but you know, you can't talk about Jesus' birth without talking about Jesus' death and resurrection. You can't do it because that little baby in the manger came to die on a cross. And to pay for our sins and to rise resurrection. But I looked up in the Gospels, and all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all recorded a little bit differently because they remembered it a little bit differently. But they recalled when Jesus was on the cross, he was offered on a sponge some sour vinegar, sour wine. In one of them, I don't know which gospel, one of them said that he actually said, "I thirst." He said, "I'm thirsty." And they offered him some sour vinegar. And he refused it. And I was thinking about that. I know in Hebrews, I think it's Hebrews, I'm going to turn there. I think it's Hebrews 12:1. If I remember correctly. It says in Hebrews 12:1, if I get there. All right, it's Hebrews 12:2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For the joy set before him. I'll tell you what that means to me. It means the vinegar and the sour wine was his present circumstances. That's what it means to me. His present circumstances. What was the joy set before him? He knew he was going to rise. He knew that he was going to destroy death and become sin and destroy death. He knew he was doing it for mankind. He knew he was obeying the will of the Father. He knew he was the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. But here he was, his humanity was nailed to a cross. He set aside, he refused to live in his present grief and his present circumstances. He was all joy. He was all love. He was all passion. He was all forgiveness. And on that cross, as man, he was all grief. His circumstances were grievous. I learned a great lesson, more, but I can only give a handful. You know, today, I'm joyous. God took me through that little lesson. It wasn't an easy one. It wasn't an easy one. There was a cost to it. There was a cost. You know what comes after joy in the Advent calendar is love. From hope to peace to joy. To love. The greatest of these is love. And I guess I'll have more about that in a few days or whenever I see you again. We don't have to receive the grief. We can enjoy the joy. I was taught it. I haven't learned it completely. It's a lifetime. I hope you enjoyed this little Christmas hope handful. I think it's a pretty hefty handful. That's all I got today. And I got a microphone, so I think we're going to be able to hear. You have a joyous day in the Lord today. Bye-bye.